Welcome back into another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about the next licensed chapter in Dead by Daylight. There are so many hyped properties out there, some of which are more likely than others. We're going to talk about the license holders for each property and form a list of the top 5 most likely options.
Even though there might be, arguably there might be some horror fundamentalists who would say Pinhead is not necessarily the most iconic or the most recognizable, but he's definitely, you cannot have a Hall of Fame without him. So I think that this, to a certain extent, cements this statement that we have, and nobody can argue today, but even video games included with the Resident Evil and Silent Hill, you can see that this is what's happening now. That if you want horror in your video games, it's Dead by Daylight. There's just no two ways about it, and all of it is there, or almost all of it. It's like a black hole sucking all of horror and making it into a beautifully chunky soup.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Schmuckles. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I also stream on Twitch on Wednesday and Sunday nights. The link for that is in the description below. Also, definitely share this video if you enjoy this content. This video has the most content I've ever had in a video. It took a tremendous amount of time to research, write, and edit this video. So make sure to leave a like down below if you enjoy this video and consider subscribing. It's pretty likely that I tore my ACL while playing soccer this past Sunday, and it's really been a struggle since then, but I'm gonna do my best to keep making content. Anyways, this channel has a ton of information on super hyped IPs that people want to see in DBD. If you have a major IP that you want to see in DBD, we've probably covered it, and if we haven't covered it, we'll probably cover it in the future. Alright, so grab a coffee, get some food, we've got a lot to talk about. The earliest that the next licensed chapter will be is the 6-year anniversary for chapter 24. If you want to know why, you should watch this video where I overview that at the beginning of the video. In that video, we go over some info from Matthew Cote himself that suggests that chapter 22 and 23 are going to be original chapters. After the Resident Evil chapter, Cote said this.
What does year 6 look like for this game?
There's definitely going to be one or two really interesting new entries in the Hall of Fame.
So technically, we've only seen one new licensed character in DBD this year. So is more coming this year? Because Cote kind of alluded to 1 or 2 licensed characters. Does the upcoming Cheryl Mason legendary skin or the Pinhead Chatterer skin count as new characters or new skins? Cote also said this in an interview about the Hellraiser chapter.
Oh yeah, and then Survivor plans are we getting us a new Survivor? Have you confirmed that yet? I don't think you've said anything.
We have said nothing about that. You are correct.
Pass. That's the good answer.
Hard pass.
Is it possible that we see Kirsty Cotton come into DBD as a paragraph later this year? Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Also, we could definitely see more Crypt TV skins. Shout out to Funky Phantom for bringing this to my attention. Funky Phantom asked Crypt TV any word on more collabs with DBD yet, and Crypt TV responded, "Patience, my child." It sounds like there could be talks going on behind the scenes between Crypt TV and Behavior. Is it possible that we ever see a full Crypt TV chapter in DBD? Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. We haven't seen licenses from what I consider to be the big 3, Paramount, Universal, and Disney, and I don't think that's a coincidence. These are giant companies that are very hard to approach. Some people are hopeful that Behavior will license Sidney Prescott through Paramount Pictures to match the Scream 2022 release date. The only time that Universal has licensed a horror character into an independent video game is that failed Chucky game. Disney has licensed a lot of content into Fortnite like Alien and Predator, but we're going to cover that in a future video. Honestly, this video is a little survey of each license. We'll go more in depth in future videos. Since Disney owns Alien and Predator, I don't think I can have either one of these IPs in our countdown until there's evidence of a Behavior Disney collaboration. Cote also addressed why Stranger Things left DBD.
With any details of agreements that we have, these are all hyper confidential. Like, there's no way in hell I can discuss any of that. It's almost impossible for these kind of deals to be an infinite duration. Like, that does not exist. No matter what kind of rights you're talking about, there's no deal where it's infinite, well, that I know of. So there's usually a duration, but it is, once you've established a partnership with someone, well, my job definitely as head of partnerships to make sure that the partnership flourishes and everybody's getting a lot out of this. And unfortunately, in some cases, someone is not getting what they need, or situation changes and things have to stop. It is the first time it happens. If I have my way, it's the last time this happens. it's unfortunate, but it's reality. I mean, everybody has their own thing, and you can decide to do what you want with your thing.
Netflix Poland announced a new Stranger Things mobile game. It was translated by Netflix Geeked. Today's members in Poland can try Netflix mobile gaming on Android with two Stranger Things, 1984 and Stranger Things 3. It's very, very early days, and we've got a lot of work to do in the months ahead, but this is the first step. Apparently, you'll be able to play on the Netflix application through a standard Netflix membership. At the end of last month, it was confirmed that Netflix is turning to Stranger Things for the first test of gaming strategy. The most important takeaway from this for DBD is that all of the Netflix IPs that were on the satisfaction survey are probably not possible anymore. The satisfaction survey came out in April 2021, and this is a good starting point when trying to guess the next licensed content to come into DBD. Slenderman wasn't on the survey. Ever since the Slenderman games came out, the creators sold the license to Sony, so now it's owned by a giant corporation. I found new information about Slenderman thanks to Mr. Smiler, Slenderman Worshipper. Big thanks to Mr. Smiler for bringing this to my attention. On February 22nd, 2019, it was announced that Mythology Entertainment would be splitting up and leaving the current whereabouts of the rights to Slenderman in question. So the prime candidates for the ownership of the Slenderman license is Sony Entertainment. Possibly Blue Isle Studios owns a version of Slenderman 2. If you want to know why that is, you can click on the title above. The main problem with Slenderman in DBD is Slenderman doesn't physically touch or interact with his victims.
There's some really cool concepts out there. There's some really cool characters out there that will just probably never make it into the game just because we'd have to transform them so much to make them fit that it wouldn't do them justice.
So Slenderman never touches his victims, but neither did Pinhead. Behavior was aware of this problem with Pinhead, but they still found a way to overcome it.
Can you talk about what it was like creating attack animations for a character that's never actually attacked in any of the films?
Yeah, that's another thing that we tend to discuss with people at the beginning. Like, there's a set of rules in the sort of the deck that we tend to send to people, and we go, yeah, that character will need to be able to physically interact with survivors and hurt them and carry them somehow, and put them on a hook and do all these actions that are critical to the gameplay mechanic. For the animators, it was a super fun little challenge.
Could they make Slenderman hold an object that strikes survivors like Pinhead? Maybe they could use his tentacles as a way to carry survivors to hooks. Jason Voorhees is still off the table because of the lawsuit. The Creeper is still off the table because it's super controversial. A lot of people who think it's possible to separate the art from the artist want to see the Creeper in DBD with a flying ability. And Kote has talked about flying abilities in the past.
We tried a lot of different perks and powers over the last 3.5 years, and some of them were just, there's no way to make them work. I think the most famous was in the original prototype, we had a flying killer. A killer that could just fly anywhere around the map and then sort of dive on people. And it's so ridiculously overpowered. Like, there was no version of it that ever made it even remotely possible to implement. It would be super cool. And then the artists would just explode because the world has been built without a top, so you can't see it from above.
See, that sounds like a Jeepers Creepers, if I heard of it. Right there for a nice little license killer.
A flying ability sounds super complicated. I reckon if Behavior ever brings in a version of the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers Reborn, its power won't have anything to do with flying. Before we do our countdown, let's address the wildcards. In our last speculation video, Pinhead was actually a wildcard. These are licenses that there's not really enough information to guess if it's likely or not. These are licenses like Alien, Predator, and The Walking Dead. Fun fact about Walking Dead, Chandler Riggs, the actor who played Carl, used to stream DBD. He tweeted at DBD in 2018 and said, "Bro, the emblem system is horrible. Please, for the love of God, revert it." I've heard a lot of people say that the Alien and Predator wouldn't fit in DBD because they're both monsters, but Kote said this in an interview.
Do you have any plans for monsters, licensed or otherwise? I love monsters.
Well, the Demogorgon was the first monster that we got into the game. It means now that monsters are possible in Dead by Daylight, and we might get others, licensed or otherwise.
We also know that the Nun and The Shining were on the satisfaction survey. More importantly, they're both owned by Warner Bros. The Nun is owned by New Line Cinema, which is a sub-company of Warner Bros. And actually, Behavior licensed Freddy Krueger through New Line Cinema, so they already have a relationship with the license holders. The Shining is owned by Warner Bros. Too. I think that Behavior's relationship with New Line Cinema and the fact that both of these IPs were on the satisfaction survey qualifies both of these as wildcards. Okay, so here's our list. Number 5 is Pennywise. Pennywise is one of Kote's dream dream licenses. He's talked about it in at least 3 different interviews that I can find. We've seen a trend of whenever Kote talks about licenses in interviews and describes them as iconic, they eventually end up in DBD. Dave Richard is also a Stephen King fan.
What would be your dream licensed killer and survivor?
Pennywise.
Wow, Pennywise.
I'm a huge fan of Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
I love what he does, and yeah, it's a difficult one to get a hold of. It's funny because our creative director, Dave Richard, is probably even a bigger Stephen King fan than I am.
The only reason Pennywise isn't in DBD is because they've had trouble getting the license from New Line Cinema, aka Warner Bros. We know that Behavior has wanted this license for years, so Pennywise definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 4 is Candyman. There are multiple license holders Behavior could reach out to for Candyman, which we talked about in this video. Most importantly, the original version of Candyman doesn't belong to Disney, Universal, or Paramount. When bringing in iconic movie killers, Behavior usually goes for the original version of the killer. I strongly suspect that Behavior struggled to get the original Freddy through Wes Craven and New Line Cinema, so the reboot Freddy was licensed instead, which Wes Craven does not own. There's no doubt that Candyman is one of the icons of horror, and as of right now, Kote and Behavior have only put mainstream iconic horror villains like Candyman into DBD one by one.
You can name like the top 10 horror icons, and a lot of people, you know, that list is pretty much always the same wherever you go. You come back to the same 5 or 10.
Right.
But that list is shrinking now. There's really not that many big ones that we don't have in the game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, would you go obscure? Like a very niche, sort of like very, not as hugely popular, but just it has a cult following, like a Pumpkinhead.
Maybe, but probably not that niche.
I'm just saying they'd prioritize a Candyman chapter over the more niche horror characters for sure. It's possible that the Candyman chapter didn't come for chapter 21 because the Pinhead rights were only a few months away from changing IP owners. Wes Craven owning the original Freddy license probably made that license hard to get. So maybe Behavior knew this and prioritized the Hellraiser chapter before the same thing happened with Pinhead and Clive Barker. Since Park Avenue Entertainment knows that they're about to lose the US rights to the original Pinhead, the 2-year window before this date in December is the use it or lose it time period. Therefore, the Pinhead chapter might have been prioritized over a Candyman chapter at that time, even though a Candyman chapter made more sense with chapter 21 to match the Candyman reboot. I'm still confused on what Tony Todd meant when he said just wait in this tweet. We know that these deals between Behavior and license holders can happen up to a year before we see the content in DBD. So I still think Tony Todd could have been talking about a Candyman chapter in DBD. And shout out to Outlaw for bringing this to my attention. I really appreciate it, Outlaw. But there are new rumors that the Gun Media game is going to be a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, not a Candyman game. So Tony Todd likely wasn't talking about this anticipated game. Apparently at one point, the LeatherfaceTheGame.com website redirected people to Gun Media's website. So the Leatherface game is a strong theory for Gun Media's game. It's probably either a Leatherface game or a Michael Myers game, since Gun Media also tagged the reboot Halloween IP owners Blumhouse in a tweet. The point is, Candyman's tweet probably wasn't talking about Gun Media's game. To me, Candyman is possible for the 6-year anniversary, but I can't put him higher than 4th right now. Number 3 is a tie between The Evil Within and Dead Space. Obviously, the last 2 anniversaries were hyped video game licenses. Not only that, but Behavior said that they were going to reuse AI bots in future chapters for future killers. An Evil Within or Dead Space chapter would likely include zombies. I think Candyman and Pennywise are more iconic than both of these options, but video game licenses seem easier to negotiate for. We already touched on this in this video, but the creator of the Resident Evil franchise, Shinji Mikami, also created the Evil Within franchise. The Evil Within IP owners, Tango Gameworks, is a Japanese dev company, and Behavior has had relationships with 2 other Japanese dev companies that could lead them to a partnership with Tango Gameworks. Again, we already talked about this in this video. The Evil Within IP was re-registered for continued use in August 2020, meaning that the Evil Within 3 could possibly happen in the future. And most importantly, for the DBD Evil Within crossover possibility, it's an active franchise. Dead Space is owned by EA. Behavior has a past developing games that were published by EA. Also, some of the Behavior devs follow EA on Twitter, so there's possible avenues for collaborations for both Dead Space and the Evil Within. Number 2 is Springtrap. There's no question that Springtrap would be the right fit for an anniversary chapter, even if it's only a paragraph. Jason Voorhees and Springtrap are the most hyped IPs, and Behavior knows that. Scott Cawthon did say no collapse for FNAF in 2021. The reason I put Springtrap so high is because the amount of social noise generated for Springtrap during the chapter 21 teaser season. Behavior is okay with teasing FNAF for chapter 21, which suggests that they don't mind the controversy that surrounded the FNAF creator earlier this year. Scott is definitely aware that Springtrap is wanted in DBD. Dako, a famous FNAF content creator who has a friendship with Cawthon, has been trying to convince Scott to let the Springtrap DBD crossover happen. Dako talked about Springtrap and DBD in summer 2021.
Oh my god. Oh, he's getting upset. Crying, of all the collabs that we could have, Springtrap in Dead by Daylight is like the top tier. Freddy Fazbear in Smash, I can't see happening unless it's like a me thing. Freddy in Fortnite, I could see happening. Freddy in Fall Guys, I can see happening. FNAF World 2, I can see happening as well. But the top tier one is Springtrap in Dead by Daylight. That's got to happen one day. It will happen. Every bone in my body, I'm just going to keep trying to persuade Scott to get Springtrap in Dead by Daylight.
It seems like it's only a matter of time before this collaboration happens. And number 1 is Chucky. Kote has talked about Chucky in interviews over and over, and he's offered solutions to the physics of Chucky in DBD. We've covered these interviews throughout our new killer series. Chucky is one of the legends of horror, and at this point it seems like a mistake that Chucky wasn't put in the satisfaction survey. Halo brought to my attention that Pennywise appeared on the satisfaction survey, even though Kote has openly admitted on livestream that the license holder said no.
Can we get Stephen King's It for the clown? I wish. Seriously, I have no problem saying that this is one we tried to get. It's not one that they're willing to discuss right now because obviously they're working on big things and they are not... they're not ready to talk about this license at this time.
So this means that we can rule out the license holder saying no as a reason to not include Chucky on that survey.
Chucky is borderline, as in he's more comedy than horror.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, we have Ash Williams, so
Right. Well,
one could argue he's more comedy than horror, but he's also legendary.
I think it
Chucky
depends.
is.
Right, and I think it also depends on which Chucky films you're watching to
True.
gauge. Because if the first handful have it's like strictly horror, and then at a certain point, you're no longer scared of the
No.
slasher. And
I think my favorite is probably Bride of Chucky.
The more I research it, the more it seems like the twins could have been a way to test a smaller character to help a Chucky chapter go smoothly. Kote has admitted that whenever they implement a power, they like to reuse it about 2 to 3 times.
We decided that whenever we create a new killer, we're building brand new mechanics and we're gonna reuse them a couple times, like 2-3 times, hopefully.
This is honestly helping an argument for chapters like The Walking Dead, The Evil Within, and Dead Space, because all of these chapters would likely come with zombies. Also, kind of a side note, if Behavior is going to reuse powers 2 to 3 times, the Pinhead M1 and Carrying animation could be reused for Slenderman with tentacles instead of chains. Anyways, on the subject of Chucky, putting an original chapter with a smaller character like Victor could ensure that a Chucky chapter goes smoothly. Imagine if Chucky was the first short killer in DBD. The PTV might be a mess, and an iconic chapter like Chucky could get a bad rep. If Behavior is planning on going for a Chucky chapter, I feel like that this is what it would look like.
The original idea, I think like 6 years ago, before we launched the game, we said whenever we create a power set, we'll always try to do a couple of variations on that power set so that we don't have to, do it from scratch every time and invent new gameplay mechanics, because that would be insane.
Money, time, and energy.
Yeah,
right?
it's just like way too much work.
The OG and reboot Chucky is owned by MGM, the Child's Play sequel Chucky's and the TV series is owned by Universal Studios. We're slowly running out of really legendary IPs, and the ones that are left also seem difficult to get, and we know that Universal Studios already gave the green light to Tick Games for a Chucky game, which failed. But still, the fact that this licensing deal happened is big. We haven't seen other games that legally licensed Pennywise, Candyman, or Springtrap. Obviously, Alien and Predator are licensed into Fortnite, but we'll cover that in a future video. Dead by Daylight is the Hall of Fame of horror, so maybe Behavior could use their licensed IPs as a way to convince MGM or Universal to share this license.
The large selection of legendary movie icons that we have in the game. It is really a place where legends of horrors can live side by side and be featured and be honored to a certain extent by appearing in this universe that we've created.
We'll definitely post more videos if any new information comes out about any of these IPs. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.